All right, I'm doing another one of these. It's 30 seconds after the previous one that I did because I didn't get to do the other one yesterday, so I'm doing twice this morning. We're still doing this is the Homeric Rhapsody thing. I'm not necessarily trying to recite what we know as the Iliad word for word. I'm also not necessarily trying to create an entirely new thing, but what I'm doing is the ancient tradition of oral poetry, which means that you would not have any notes, not read anything. You can see I'm not looking at anything while I'm doing it. And you try to tell a coherent version of the story with as many details as needed for the story you're telling off the top of your head and keeping some sort of rhythm as you go. Not very good at it yet, but that's why we keep doing it. All right, let's keep going. Sing, goddess, of the continuation of that great Aristeia, that moment of glory for the son of Tydeus, Diomedes. He raged on the battlefield, imbued with the spirit and fire of battle from that great gray-eyed goddess of tactics and of battlecraft, Athena, daughter of Zeus, she who wears the aegis. Diomedes had been raging forth, and as the armies of the Trojans noticed and knew that their doom had fallen on them, many had begun to flee, many had been routed already, as Diomedes led forth the Achaean hosts, and they, at some distance, believing him to at any moment potentially turn on themselves, such was his wrath and his blind fury. The Achaeans, they followed him, and slew and slew. Thus were the Trojans afeared at this, and one of the great captains of that host, he from Dardania, the son of Aphrodite and Anchises, came forth, great AENEAS, destined for many a glorious deed, had come forth out of the lines with his men, and left all his attendants behind to take on Diomedes one on one. He emerged from that group, and Diomedes saw him and said to him, "Here comes one who I think may be more of a challenge, though no match for myself. That he may think to have some claim that he may take me on is a laughing matter, but I will cast my spear nonetheless. So step forward, AENEAS, and meet your doom." AENEAS spoke to him. "Yea, Diomedes, I can see that you have done many a great and terrible deed on this day, but I think you will not have such an easy time fighting against myself. I am not only the son of a great warrior, Anchises in his day had done many a deed worth telling, but also of a goddess of one of the Olympians, which you cannot claim with your mortal parentage. She of the laughter-loving, that foam-born Aphrodite is, I can claim, to be my mother, and she has imbued me with many a skill and many a gift. I think I shall not go down to that great horseman death today. Not against you, Diomedes. It will take much more than that." Diomedes spoke. If it be a contest of our fathers and mothers, then yea, you may have a goddess at your side, or above you, or having birthed you, I care not. I am imbued with power that you do not understand, and my father Tydeus had been given that same power. I may not be born of a goddess, but I have a goddess in me, and you cannot claim the same, you peon AENEAS. Why don't you go back to Troy and continue begging Priam to give you favors or land, or perhaps to inherit the city, if you so think that he will give you those glories above his many sons who deserve it more than you? Yea, you will never be given the respect you seem to deserve, that you hope for. There are too many heirs of Priam that Achilles or I have not cut down yet for you to descend or ascend onto the throne of that city. Yea, let us cast the spears, and we will fight and measure our strength that way. We will not continue talking like two women who are arguing over the price of some wares at the shop. Let us move forward and step forth with our spears and our swords. Aeneas, seeing the foam coming from his mouth and the tone of his voice shifting into something bestial, did step forth, though he did feel a tinge of fear. And he, in his heart, spoke to his goddess mother. "O great laughter-loving Aphrodite, I have not seen you or met with you many times until now, but I have felt your presence throughout my life, and have felt that luck and charm which you have imbued me with. I now fear that this mad dog Diomedes may be the one to deal great damage to me. So I ask you that you imbue me with some power, or at least protect me against harm, as I go to fight this man, great among the Achaeans, seeming himself as an immortal god." And thus he stepped forth, casting his spear. Aeneas first cast, and his spear did not miss, but went straight towards that targe of Diomedes, who had raised his shield in time and blocked it at such an angle that the bronze point of the spear raked forth against the front of the shield, leaving a mighty rent in that front section, but did not pierce through. Thus did Diomedes cast his spear with all the rage and the wrath of generations of his name, Tydeus and Diomedes and all those who came before, and of course that gray-eyed goddess Athene, Trito-born, the passing wise, had stuck that spear with all the rage and fury that one can give. But she did not guide its flight, and it did hit the shield of Aeneas, but did not pass into his fair flesh. Instead, he had just in time wrenched his body sideways and then escaped grim death, and he, by inches, had only just gotten his life forth once again. Whether this was from some skill that he had learned in the many years on the battlefield, or some blessing from his mother Aphrodite, neither of the warriors knew. But they had both had cast their spears, and they now turned to whatever weapons they could. Aeneas taking forth the sword from that baldric at his hip, silver-studded, with nails of ivory in it, a beautiful thing that he took forth, worthy of the son of Aphrodite. And Diomedes, before even taking his bronze blade, took up a great stone off the ground, something that two men, heaving with all their might, and an ox cart aside, would not be able to lift forth in this age that we know today. But Diomedes easily took the thing up, like a man picking up his child who had just returned from the battlefield, bouncing him forth on his knee, and gladdened by that progeny, Diomedes grabbed gently that stone with no more effort than one such a man. He took it over his shoulder and hurled it with such speed it seemed a spear going through the air or an arrow in flight. And that stone struck onto the shield which Aeneas held before him at such force that the shield itself was bent inward, all crumpled like a piece of dead leaf that had been stamped on by a foot in those autumn days when all the leaves are dying. Aeneas doubled back, the breath taken out of him. He was on the ground, panting for his life, unable to get forth up onto his feet. And Diomedes closed in for the kill, grabbing forth that blade of bronze, thirsty for blood, never sated. And Aphrodite at this knew there was something that needed to be done. She could not stop that man Diomedes, but at least she could take her son off the battlefield. That goddess came forth in a flash, as all around could not see. She grabbed her son, took him up with no more effort than picking up a feather, and she took him in her arms and began floating away off the battlefield, carrying him into the area behind the lines where medics were set and who would treat his wounds. She had no presentiment that Tydeus' son could see her form and could understand what was happening. He followed, he asked, called for Sthenelus, and Sthenelus came up on those fleet horses that he had, and he said to him, "I see here Aeneas is trying to leave the battlefield. Get me up on these horses, and I will tell you on the way." Aphrodite was fast leaving the field, but Diomedes' horses were just as fast, and he said to Sthenelus, "That man Aeneas has been taken down by myself. His chariot is going to be somewhere around here. You get off the chariot and go find it and take it for yourself, for those horses were bred by the great Tros that Anchises had bred on that son of Laomedon, on Laomedon's horses that were given to him by Zeus himself for his son Ganymede. God-given horses they are. Do not let them get past." Thus did Sthenelus immediately jump forth and spotted the chariot, and Diomedes led in pursuit. He came within a hair's breadth, his horses breathing down the back of Aphrodite, not that she could feel it, and his long shadowed spear he stabbed forth out of the chariot, and it nicked Aphrodite's great, soft hand. That goddess screamed with a sound the men had never heard before. This was a thing unheard of, that a man would harm a goddess in this age of the world when men were sundered from gods and none could see or touch or influence their persons. Aphrodite clasped her hand, which was now bleeding forth with the great ichor of the gods, who do not eat Demeter's grain, but rather drink nectar and eat ambrosia, and are not to be called mortals among themselves. That white ichor bleeding forth, Aphrodite left in a flash, dropping her son Aeneas, and calling forth to the Lord of Light, Apollo, who had taken him and took him on his great chariot, speeding away at a speed Diomedes could never catch, nor would he want to, as he was barred from attacking any god but that laughter-loving one, the Paphlagonian. So did Aphrodite leave the field with her wounded hand, and Diomedes, foaming still at the mouth, had been victorious in his fight against one of the immortals. All right. That one was a little better because it was... So the previous couple of ones, I was doing the battle scenes where it's kind of like the cracks in between sort of like significant events, where it's just like, this guy killed that guy, and then here's a horrible way that he got killed type stuff, which, I can't remember the specific, any of the characters that get killed, or why or how, or what their backstories were or whatever, which is why I kind of struggle with those. But this one is a very established scene of Diomedes taking on Aphrodite and fighting Aeneas and sharing stories of their parentage and stuff. So it was a little more coherent, and I was able to add more details, and I was pretty happy with that one overall. There were a few points where I really was at a loss for words, which again I have to stop doing, and that just comes with practice, I guess. But yeah, I think that overall it was pretty good. Stuff that I've was happy with. There was a part where I kind of lost my train of thought, where I couldn't remember if Athena, I think she just comes to Diomedes like in person, although that's pretty rare. And I kind of got it confused with the part where Athena, which is going to come later, where they Athena takes on Ares with Diomedes, and she comes down and she like gets on his chariot. I kind of confused that with this part a little bit, and I also had her like embody another guy that I made up to talk to Diomedes. But I think it's more of a thing where she kind of like, comes down and just leaves and doesn't necessarily talk to him in somebody else's form. I liked the part where Aeneas prays to Aphrodite before he casts his spear. I thought that was kind of a nice kind of like fleshing out moment, because Aphrodite does eventually save him, as we saw in this version too. But having him pray to her kind of gives this like presentiment beforehand about something potentially happening to, to round out that moment, and not having it just be a Deus Ex Machina. Not that Homer is opposed to Deus Ex Machina moments. That's like a lot of stuff happens like that. But I thought that was nice. I thought some of the stuff with them exchanging their stories of their parentage was pretty good. I think, what else? I don't think there was too much other stuff than that I really is like of note. But not bad, that it's not going to be perfect, as I haven't only been doing this for like 20 or 30 days at this point. But, you just keep doing it and see what you can come up with. And what's more interesting to me is when we revisit moments, because then you have already had to solve a lot of these problems and come up with the stuff and remember the stuff. And then on a second telling, you can use all the stuff you've already remembered and then just add or remove things as needed. So it's really, as they say, writing is rewriting, and oral formulaic composition is oral formulaic compositioning, because all the real work gets done when you do it again, not when you do it the first time. So this is laying the groundwork and trying to practice and get good at the rhythm and get good at just doing it in general and seeing how much I can remember in general. But after that is when the real work starts to happen. So we'll see how that goes. Again, the project I'm doing this for is I'm working on a game that I'm making. It's a turn-based RPG based on the Trojan War. It uses like a Greek Attic red figure pottery style. And it is, I'm trying to put a lot of sort of like Homeric style writing in it, so that it would feel like something Homeric. And so that's why I'm trying to practice, rather than just like studying the Iliad, which I do anyway. and taking a lot of notes and all that, which I also do anyway. I am trying, like, aside from that, I don't take notes in order to do what I'm doing here. I take notes, you know, for stuff I might want to put into the game or things like that. But I wanted to sort of like try to do what Homer did, or tell a story in the way that Homer told it, which is to say that you would have no stuff that you've written down and you only rely on stuff that you've heard or remembered or been told. And it's been pretty fun. So you can find the making of the game on my channel. There's plenty of videos of that. And, you know, I'm going to just keep doing this and see how far I can get with it. All right.